Brian, man, thanks for being here. Uh, how long ago did you join MassMutual?
So crazy to think it's been 7.5 years at this point, Sten. I joined at that point in time, taking over advice and financial planning, and certainly a lot has changed since I've been here. I kind of lovingly refer to my team now as the land of misfit toys. We have not only financial planning under us, but we have practice management, we have practice acquisition loans, we have teaming,
Oh, wow.
we have a wealth recruiting loan. We kind of span a lot of different areas, but super excited about the opportunity at MassMutual and all we've done over the past few years.
No doubt. Yeah, that's when we met, I guess. I think I was there when you first joined, and you came from, was it Ameriprise?
Yeah, I came from Ameriprise. So I actually remember, speaking with you. I think I had done my 23rd speaking engagement in about 3 days, and you came up and we had a brief discussion. But
Yeah.
I started way back at Ameriprise. It's scary to think, Sten, it's been 20 years now, which means my career is about halfway over. I'm on the back half. But I started when it was American Express Financial Advisors, became a financial advisor, which was truly the most valuable experience of my career. My first year, I was able to bring on 60 fee-based financial planning clients. I was good at a couple of things. One, I was really good at marketing, building a referable experience, getting out and meeting people, networking, doing events. And then I was really good at client engagement and having the dialogue and showing value in that initial meeting. So between that and all the cold calling I did, felt like it was a good entry into the career. Got beat up on the phones every week, but that all really helped me and to understand kind of the life of an advisor and what the day-to-day looks like and how to build value to clients.
Yeah, no, I remember when you came over, the buzz, this was the guy because Ameriprise, I think to some degree at one point or another was like the standard for financial planning. Most advisors were charging for it. And you were the great hope for the MassMutual system to level up and kind of take financial planning to the next level. Your title now is head of financial planning and practice management. Is that right?
Yep.
Or MassMutual?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's correct. Yeah, I think first of all, flattery will get you everywhere with me, Sten. So I appreciate you saying that. But yeah, it's been good, and I think we've done a lot over the years, and I think the experience at Ameriprise has shaped my thinking quite a bit.
Mm.
I will say that commitment to training up front really made a big difference for me in how I think about things, the repetition and the continuous improvement of processes that really, really shaped my career. So
with so financial planning in general, I know I went through the season of, I was a insurance BD guy, and then I went to full on, all we do is investments all the time. And financial planning to me kind of like shook the core of who I was as an advisor. Like, hey, you're not allowed to charge for that. You're supposed to give it away for free. And then I fortunately kind of bought in and then went through the whole, emotional cycle of change of like uninformed optimism, like, hey, this is going to be great, to, informed pessimism of like, wow, this is hard. Like this, I want to go back.
Yeah.
I want to go back to the old way. And fortunately, with some good coaching, pushed through to saying like, I think the practice of the future, every advisor is able to ask for a fee because they're valuable even without selling something. What has your experience been? 7.5 years of entering a system that's an insurance powerhouse, definitely makes a footprint in the investment world. But as I recall, like financial planning at that time was not the highest of priorities. And then how has it changed in that time?
So it's a really good question. I think part of it's a little bit of a chicken and an egg discussion. Just because we have it and we invest in it doesn't mean we've bought into it. But I think what we needed from, if you kind of think of the law of diffusion of innovation and obtaining social proof by getting a high enough percentage of advisors and agencies investing in it, you can start to make a really strong case of why more and more people should be implementing it into their practice. So by kind of going out to what I'd say are our, early adopters and our innovators and engaging them, we've been able to create a lot of momentum through other advisors to help grow the business. And what we see now is probably much different than when you were here, whereas we are definitely in a spot where we're trying to lead with advice. And I think what comes as a result of that in leading with advice, and what we see is far greater implementation with our clients, right? So when you're able to kind of like assign that fee to the relationship and there's buy-in to the advice that the client is receiving, we certainly see more net flows. We see higher assets and higher asset retention. We see more insurance products implemented because we're connecting the client's values and goals to the products and services we offer. And that deeper relationship, I think, has really, really resonated. So I would say we've reached kind of the critical mass we needed to really show that it's the most valuable way you can engage clients, and are continuing to invest very heavily in the business, and definitely see it as the future of our model.
So you guys have reached the point where the highest ups, you've convinced them, like there's because I feel like some firms are like, we're going to miss out on sales if we, financial planning kind of trash that I dealt with too when I first started doing it. Well, what if I don't get the assets? What if they don't buy the insurance? But you guys have had enough reps now where there's no question.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And financial planning is really just, it's a giant marshmallow test, right? There's a great book. If you've ever had the opportunity to read it, there's great videos with little kids online. But it's the idea that I'm gonna put this in front of you, and you can grab this one marshmallow now, but if you can wait 5 minutes, you can have 2 marshmallows. And delayed gratification is a really key indicator of success in this business. And the idea that if we're okay with waiting a little bit, we can get even more for ourselves while doing what's right for our clients. So it's kind of that mind of a capitalist, heart of a social worker. Mm-hmm. But I think what we see is, you could go and say, well, let me grab that policy, let me grab those assets and not engage the client more deeply. But over the life of the relationship, what we've seen through our data is that there's significantly higher implementation initially and over time, because we keep that client engaged in an advice-based relationship. So the data is there. And beyond the data, I think what we have is the buy-in that everybody sees it, right? So you feel it in your practice, you feel it in your agency. And I think that's really been what's been most powerful, is, kind of that peer-to-peer communication of people talking to other advisors, other general agents, and seeing that it really and truly works. So that's how we've gotten the buy-in, and I think where we've made an absolute ton of progress.
Yeah. I look back when I was in my 20s in the business, and the perception I had was like, I have to get really good at getting assets, but nobody I know has money. And I have to go try to convince these people that have money to leave their advisor or move it over. Like, while I had enough wins to have some success, like that just felt like a grind. And then there was the insurance side, which people need, but it can take a long time, or I didn't know the people that wanted to buy big policies right away. That if I could go back in time and have this third pillar to where I built my knowledge base and built my confidence enough to sit with somebody and just get paid for my time, I think about that revenue stream could have been the foundation of my business. And the other stuff will come and you can get better at it. But for a lot of my career, I didn't even have that revenue stream available to me.
Yeah. And I think the fee, like from my perspective, is the most important part too, right? It's the psychological phenomenon of conspicuous consumption, which is people assign a higher value to something they pay for. A great example is, if you think about purses, all bags hold the same thing, but why do people pay $20,000 for a bag? It's because of the perceived value. That kind of psychological phenomena really plays through in financial planning. And what we see is when we assign a fee to the relationship versus when we don't. So just say it's the exact same services, exact same client experience, the client has significantly higher implementation. And to your point, probably one of the most important aspects is, we talk a lot about assets and protection, is really financial planning is the monetization of cash flow, and it is the experience of cash flow. So really what we do as financial planners is we take cash flow and we turn it to cash flow in the future. So everything we sell and do and implement it is designed for cash flow. Cash reserve is in the event of emergency or opportunity. Disability is for if something goes wrong from a health perspective, we have a way to cover it. Life insurance, it's in the event of a death, we have cash flow. We're saving into retirement for cash flow in the future. But the trick is, rather than just kind of thinking about it again from that asset and protection standpoint, from a policy perspective, how do we take in what the client has available and turn it into something in the future while monetizing it for ourselves. And I think that's a really important aspect and mindset to get into, is just being that master of understanding cash flow is really, really important, because at the end of the day, that's always what the client's going to need from us when some sort of opportunity comes along, or retirement or education. It all points to that. So
yeah, oh, that's a great point. What have you experienced now? I mean, you guys have how many advisors in your system?
about 7,000.
Yeah. So there's a lot of reps, a lot of data kind of feeding up to you guys. Are you seeing that there's almost like phases to where it's like when an advisor starts, they're hesitant, a little scared, uncomfortable. They do a few plans in year one. They watch some people do it. They probably undercharge. In year two, they right size their fee a little bit and do some more plans. Like, are you guys experiencing yet? There's this life cycle almost to planning.
Absolutely. So yeah, it's really funny to think about and reflect on now. A little bit of this kind of early on in the process was kind of, just trust us and pushing folks off a cliff and saying, you gotta just try it and see how it goes. But we do think about it in terms of way we engage the field. We think of it through the context of situational leadership, right? Which is this idea that you really need to assess the task you're asking the advisor to do and not assess the person. Because you could look at a veteran advisor and say, man, they're a wildly successful advisor. They'll be great at financial planning, but they may fail miserably because it's so different than what they're used to and how they're used to engaging clients. So what we try to do is provide coaching, facilitated peer-to-peer learning through small groups of like-minded advisors to really kind of shape how the advisors go about doing their business. That's been really, really important. So if somebody's new to planning, you need to be really highly directive. So there's processes that work. There's processes that have demonstrated they work. It's not always the same process, but we can steal and take those kind of best ways to go about doing it and help an advisor get off and running. And we typically try to get advisors to engage 15 clients into a fee-based relationship to test it. Nice. Okay. Then once they've kind of gotten over that first hump, Sten, then you start to talk about, okay, we've got some momentum here. How do we go engage more clients while keeping those relationships going? Because part of what we've built is an ongoing service. So our advisors charge a fee every single year, as long as the advisor and the client want to maintain that fee-based relationship. So we try to maintain what we have and build upon it. And then after, 2, 3, 4 years, now you've got to start to ask questions about scale. You've got, 40, 50 fee-based financial planning clients. How do I continue to grow? Do I need to make tweaks to my process? It becomes really about growth through efficiency at that point. And we really start to help to shape. So it's really those kind of 3 phases, kind of loosely defined. It's just a dabbler and starting. Then it's kind of getting a little bit of scale. And then when you're really at scale, how do I continue to grow and make sure I enhance the client experience and continue to get the fees that I want, and also working with the right clients. I think a big thing early on is you'll start to see that it's a specific type of client you want. And once you really define that as an advisor, it gets a lot easier, because then you really know what you want. You want somebody that's advice receptive. You want somebody that's committed their goals. You want somebody that really truly understands their personal values and how they connect to them. Those components all really make for a good financial planning client for a fee. And then, we design all of our coaching around that, and really to help advisors continue to push through and get to where they want as a business.
So you guys have a good until canceled arrangement with planning?
We do. So one of the most time I spent early on here was kind of revamping our financial planning services. So that's back when you were here. So what we had originally was the financial planning relationship when I got here was clients signed up while they were going through the kind of plan creation, quote unquote, process. They were engaged in a fiduciary relationship. But as we kind of built it out, what we decided is that we wanted to make sure the relationship was something that could go on in perpetuity. So if an advisor and client wanted to have an advice-based relationship over the client's life cycle, where there's all these changes that are extraneous, all these changes that are personal to the client that are going on, the ability to kind of give advice to the client over time became really, really something that we wanted as a hallmark. So what we've really tried to do, Sten, is de-emphasize the plan itself and really emphasize the advisor as the value prop and give them the opportunity to offer kind of kinesthetic engagement over time as the value prop. So what we've had to do from a policy perspective is that means you need to kind of de-emphasize again the plan and kind of take the pieces out that make that, really not understandable to a client. So, really robust analysis, all kinds of calculations that don't make sense to anybody, but especially when clients are really looking for, what are my action items? What do I need to do today? Here's a new situation that's arose then. How can you help me to address that? By making the planning ongoing and more kinesthetic and an open engagement, what we've really unlocked is the ability to provide a greater client experience and greater value to the client over time. And that's where I think the magic really is when you get into those ongoing relationships over time where you've got somebody you've been working with 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, and they see the value, they understand why they're paying a fee. That's a really good place to be in as an advisor too.
What was the compliance hurdle? Because I think more firms I run into are not doing that. But if you have advisors, they would want to be doing that. What's the kind of the obstacle that something the advisor level don't realize from like the compliance corporate level?
So it depends certainly by firm. I think the tendency from a policy perspective is that if I'm more specific with the expectations I put on the advisor for the plan, I'll reduce the risk. It's actually the opposite. It's true. It's inverse. So if we place higher expectations on the plan deliverable, there's way more opportunities for there to be errors in the process, right? Or non-compliance. And the crazy part about financial planning, there's no standard in the industry. So your standards are really designed by you through your policy. So what we've really tried to focus on is like, all right, let's take away all the noise. Let's take away all this analysis. What is it the client really wants? And how can we be really, really clear with what the client needs to do to be successful? We still are going to document it. We're still going to ensure that it goes to the client and we show that it goes to the client. But what happens if the document is 1 page? What if it's 2 pages? The advisor can still give, a full analysis from whatever tool or platform they decide. But let's give the advisors the option to give something that's really simple. Maybe they even want to give it to the client in pieces. Maybe they want to give it when it's the advice when it's most valuable to the client based on a seasonal advice model. So that flexibility has been really interesting. And what we've seen is advisors have started to kind of move more towards, I want to provide value over time. We're not going to solve everything in the first year. The value is not the plan, my advice is. And that shift has been really, really valuable to our field. And we're really starting to see kind of the agency and practice administration and operations align to that. And it's really, really interesting to see that journey over, a 7.5-year period.
Yeah, well, that's great feedback. And my hope is every advisor listening right now is hearing that Brian oversees over 7,000 advisors in one of the largest firms in the country, and financial planning is almost ubiquitous in the culture now. That if there's any part of you listening that thinks like, hey, this is just an optional or like kind of a trend or a fad, it's here to stay, in my opinion. And if you don't adopt it to some degree, you will eventually be at a disadvantage because there's a chance your client runs into an advisor that does think this way and talks this way. And in my experience, when I present on a whiteboard financial planning to a client that only has ever experienced a transactional advisor relationship, they're like, I didn't even know this was available. Like the bar is not high for us, but I think financial planning puts you in a kind of a different class.
Yeah. And the one thing to keep in mind too is that clients are trained by an advisor. They've worked with an advisor before. So they've been trained to expect something. And if you really want to differentiate your practice, you need to show them value and how what you're doing could potentially be different than what they've experienced. And I think a great way to really truly understand, if you're an advisor on listening to this and are thinking, gosh, what are some ways I can understand more? One of the things we did with our advisor committee is we did a survey of all of our best advisors in terms of financial planning. And we asked their clients, like, what do you find value? And without fail, the clients were like, my advisor is amazing when the clients were in a financial planning relationship. So that's one way. A survey is a great way to kind of get your mind to rethink things. The other thing that I think is a great way to go about it is a client advisory board. Get your best clients in a room, buy them dinner, get a third party to come in. It could be, somebody you respect as a field leader. It could be a consultant, and have them engage your clients and record it and get feedback from them on what they expect from an advisor. I think what you'll find is pretty shocking. It'll be pretty in line with financial planning. I certainly think the other thing is peer to peer. So
I think
I've always said
we're scared to ask that question. I think we're scared to ask the question because we know what they're going to say.
Yeah, right. So, but the outcome is that there's really two people that shape advisors. It's their peers and their clients, right? Like go in there and ask the question, see what happens, right? And I think you'll find that. But most advisors, I think that this is their life's work, right? Like this is your business, and I think knowing that there's ways to provide more value to clients is often will shake them and get them to take action. And then it's just taking that first step. It's going and being brave enough that first time and be willing to fail. And, I think that's hard too, but I would say to the effect that you can, some sort of peer-to-peer or mentor relationship is helpful, and leverage your clients where you see fit too.
Yeah, I've loved the experience when we do our live events and we'll get some advisors to come that are 30-year veterans, Merrill Lynch, Raymond James, MassMutual. Yeah. And by almost every standard, they've done it. Like they make great income, they sell a bunch of insurance, they have a bunch of AUM. But there's some of them that are like, there's something missing still. And I think the feedback I've got for them is like, the older I get in this business, the more valuable I actually am. Yet I don't get paid for any of that experience. And some of these advisors leave here like with permission now to go out and say, hey, I have 30 years of plus of experience. That's actually worth something without any product attached to it. That I think the newer advisors I experience, they want to work this way. I've talked to some like college financial planning programs, like this resonates with the next wave. I think there's advisors our age that are like, hey, I still have time to turn this into a business and make great revenue. But I think there's advisors that are maybe in their last 10 years, like there's still an opportunity there. I've found there's fewer of them that are willing to make a shift, but the ones that are get super excited about it.
Yeah, I think, the coaching model, one of the coaching models I've always used to kind of frame up that is intrinsic is greater than extrinsic is greater than systemic, which is people's personal why is always going to be more valuable or influence them more to change than money, and certainly more than like the idea of changing a system, right? Like those things don't change, but that connection when an advisor sees that their life's work can be even more valuable to clients, and then you can quantify it as like it's a great discovery, right? Like I think we take for granted as advisors the knowledge we accumulate over a long period of time. That knowledge is incredibly valuable. We get way more reps on a financial view into a client's lives than anybody else out there. And what we see and what we acquire over time does become more valuable. And then you start to think about it from like a valuation perspective. And, you don't always want to apply a value to intrinsic motivators. But if I'm trying to exit the business, man, what a valuable practice. I've got recurring financial planning fee-based revenue, plus I've got fee-based assets, plus I have recurring commissions on an insurance side. I mean, that is an incredibly valuable practice. You want to talk about multiples. Now you've got a much higher revenue per client. I think that's going to get top dollar as you look to exit the business. So I think that's really important is that intrinsic, my life's work is valuable. Let me dig in and show how I can provide it more valuable. And let me commit my time to the people that are willing to pay for it. I think that's a good way to make the last 10 years really special.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for all advisors listening, if you've kind of dipped your toe in the water with planning, and I've had some other guests on here that are just reinforcing this works. It gets more inflows. You'll get more insurance sales. That like you're not. It's not you're not having to choose. Like it can be a both and situation. I've seen advisors that have focused on this for even 12 months. Like the ongoing revenue and the exponential value, you'll never regret it. I've not met one advisor that said I focused on financial planning, got better at it, learned how to communicate my value differently, but I'm just going to go back to the way I was doing it before. So if there is hesitancy in anybody listening, please, from me and Brian, just take it. Like, you will not regret it if you lean into this, because it's coming, or it's already here.
Yeah, I mean it's here. I think we're going to continue to see the evolution of planning over the next couple decades become more and more valuable, as certainly as kind of the life coaching meets financial planning, financial services, to the connection to individuals' values. But it's the, the other thing I'd say is, don't let early failures dissuade you. You're going to have great outcomes. You're going to fail. And that's okay. And I think you'll learn from that, but it is the Grant Cardone 10X. You've got to take massive action to get the results, to get the scale that you need. So even when I was talking earlier about, getting 15 people engaged, like, that's a win, but it's not really enough. You need to keep going, and you need to do it over a period of years. So with that being said, I think, scaling and efficiency comes into play, like we were talking about earlier, but just keep committed to the cause, know your value prop, and know what it is you're really good at and what your niche is. And I think that'll help you really, really take the action you need.
Yeah, I do see a lot of advisors. I think we're willing to settle for small tweaks to our business, for small growth or small change. And then we're okay just kind of riding the organic growth wave, because that's, I think, what we all were promised when we started. Like, hey, someday you'll get there. But to the 10X point, that was a great book. Where adding financial planning to your business is probably the most relevant 10X move I think an advisor can make right now. We want advisors to hire good people, so it's not dependent on them. There's all this practice management stuff, and I'll have to have you back on to talk about that specifically. Because again, with 7,000 plus advisors, the reps you guys have is very valuable. But that is a 10X move if you're looking for one, is to really lean into, how do I hit my mindset around I'm valuable apart from the product? I think that's something that has to be overcome. And then, what does it look like to add a new revenue stream to my business that can go from zero to hundreds of thousands of dollars?
Yeah, again, it's that, I mentioned this earlier, it's that mind of a capitalist, but a heart of a social worker. If you're doing what's right for the clients, what inevitably comes as a result of this is more revenue for you at a practice level. And really assessing profitability at a client level is an important aspect to practice management, right? Like, treat all clients fairly, but not equally as a business owner, and assessing that and breaking that down and understanding how you're going to provide value and a great client experience over time to those clients based on kind of where they fit into your business too. But there's nothing that I've seen that doesn't indicate that you will be more successful as an advisor if you're able to assign a fee to the relationship. It will lead to positive outcomes. I think, one of the things we've seen, Sten, is this idea that if I were to assign a fee to the relationship, there wouldn't be money to pay the premiums of policies that they have. And the exact opposite is true. What we find is that, again, and I know we keep harping on this point, is when we use this process, we free up dollars through identifying opportunities, and we apply that to other opportunities, and we gather more assets. So it's really self-perpetuating. And the beauty of it is, if it's done correctly over time, you continue to see more and more come your way too, through the life cycle of a client.
Yeah, no doubt. Man, bro, this is good. MassMutual is lucky to have you.
Thanks, man. I'm happy to help you out in any way, and I appreciate you having me on.
You bet, man. We'll talk soon.